Let me know if you guys can hear me now. Can you hear me okay? Let me know because I restarted everything. And then, okay, guys, I'm going to say sorry about that. Sorry about that. Had to restart. All right. Can you wonderful. Okay. I don't know what happened. And okay, wonderful. I don't know what happened other than it's my luck. This happens all the time. So hopefully you guys on Instagram can hear me and see me. There we go. We're back live. So I'm sorry about that, guys. I don't know what I did wrong. Let me go back and acknowledge all of you that are on. I see quite a few of you. Hello, Deb and Sammy. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. I also see Dawn One. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. The Retro Woman 80. Yes, you did make it. Glad to see you here. Live Life, hello and welcome. Glad to see you as well. Jessica J, I'm glad you're recovering and home from the hospital. That's wonderful. Welcome. Glad to have you with me tonight again. Silent Walk, I'm sorry about that, guys. Don't know what happened there. Silent Walk, welcome. And Annie Walker, happy to see you both tonight. Adrian Paul, excuse me for that. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you as well. I also see Jasmina. Hello. Hopefully you can hear me better this time. Sun and Sunflowers. Hello and welcome. Okay, I'm going to scroll all the way down and just make sure nobody's saying, we can't hear you. Okay, wonderful. You guys can hear me now. Josephine Millo, hello. And T Mac, welcome both of you. I'm glad to see you. Yes. Oh, thank you so much, K.E. Hodges. Glad to see you as well. Glad you're here. So, for those of you who showed me tons and tons of love, thank you so much for responding to my event that I went to, or the symposium that I went to this past 4 days, I should say. I was only there for 4 days. And it was a lot. It was such a beautiful event. So I love you guys for just sending me all kinds of messages of love and support. So thank you for that. If you guys aren't aware of what I'm talking about, if any of you didn't see, you can go to the community section and see what happened in Washington, D.C. with Psychotherapy Networker Symposium. You'll get all the details there. Okay, so we're going to talk about avoidance in tonight's live chat. We can either, thank you so much, Silent Walk. That's so sweet of you. We're going to talk about avoidance, and we're going to talk about in two different ways. One includes patterns that maybe you engage in trying to protect yourself from any kind of perceived threat. But then also we're going to talk about some family members or somebody that you've been in a relationship with who avoids, and how very complicated and for lack of a better term, dysfunctional that can be. I know a lot of you have most likely experienced the stress response that happens when you are trying to communicate with someone, and instead of them just communicating back to you in a a mature, healthy fashion, they avoid you. They may avoid you by not answering your phone calls or text messages or social media. And I'm also going to throw some new terms in here for you tonight. They also avoid in a cognitive way, which is they kind of distract themselves and escape cognitively, and they don't really process what it is that you are saying to them because they don't want to deal with you. So they are avoiding. You may also notice that their avoidance tends to be almost like a way of coping for them. It's an avoidant, what we call it is avoidant coping skills. And what we do there is we minimize, we toss it in the back of our mind, we hide and push things back because we don't want to deal with something that we need to deal with. So you may know, if you may have a family member like this, you may know somebody like this, and the way that they are responding to your need for them to be present. I see that I'm frozen again. I have no idea why. Oh, frozen again, guys. Can you at least hear? Yeah. Okay. Let me know. I'm not quite sure what's going on in tonight's live chat. I see that too. Okay. Hold on, guys. Bear with me. Okay. Okay, you guys should be able to hear me and see me now. Let me know if anything's wrong. I had to switch around some things on my end, so hopefully this works. Let me know if you can't hear me or can't see me. And I can pick right up where I left off. I'll wait till somebody tells me. Wonderful. Thank you. The Retro Woman 80. I don't understand what's wrong today, but something's wrong. All right, guys. So let me go ahead and pick up where I left off. That you may be in a situation where you recognize that the person that you are connected with may engage in what's called avoidant coping. And that's when they kind of block you out and they utilize whatever they can utilize to keep you off of them. And so that might be minimizing, that might be trying to escape something, that might be denying something that you said, or just refusing to be understanding and patient and welcoming, right? So avoiding coping is very maladaptive because the issue is the person would rather deny, gaslight, stonewall, right? Refuse to talk to you, minimize something, ignore something before they give you the time to talk to them and to connect with them. So this is maladaptive coping. Now, there's also a stress response to avoidance. And what's interesting is there's research studies using rats and also using human participants where the fight or flight system gets triggered when a person is trying to communicate with somebody else who is avoiding, who is engaging in maladaptive avoidance. And what's interesting about this research, I'll make sure that I post it in the description box below for you as well. But what's interesting about this research is the research is highlighting, and we've talked about this before, so you guys should know what this is. It's highlighting what's called the HPA axis, and that's the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal system or axis, and that's basically central nervous system dominance or acceleration. So it's the fight or flight mode. And what happens here is if you approach somebody and you're trying to have a very serious conversation with them, or you're trying to connect with them in some fashion, or you're trying to bond with them, the brain basically sees their avoidance as a threat to you, right? And so there's a part of the brain that does this. And the part of the brain, let me make sure too that I am, give me one second, guys. Let me make sure before I continue this. There we go. Okay. The brain is basically responding to this threat of avoidance. And so the part of the brain that is responding is called the amygdala. The amygdala, we talk about it all the time on this channel as well. The amygdala is that almond-sized structure right in the middle of the brain. And it's next to a variety of other centers of the brain that has a lot to do with memory, memory, emotional responses, pleasure, stimulation, all of those things. And so if you can kind of imagine, you're trying to talk to someone, a family member, a partner, and they are completely blocking you out. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information on some of the tactics that these individuals might use, but they're blocking you out so much that now your amygdala, now your brain is starting to perceive that avoidance that they are displaying as a threat to you. And so the amygdala is kind of like a flashlight, and it's constantly searching and seeking your environment. There's no higher order thinking with the amygdala, meaning there's no cognition, there's no logics, there's none of that, there's no reasoning. All the amygdala sees is a potential threat, and then boom, there's your fight or flight system that kicks in. And so now you're anxious, maybe you're afraid, maybe you're overwhelmed, maybe you're starting to feel depressed and anxious, right? You may even find yourself avoiding that person who's avoiding because you don't want to deal with that HPA axis or that fight or flight mode that your body gets thrown into because the brain has to almost feel like it's on defense, right? So it's interesting what our research says about the amygdala, about the brain, about the fight or flight system, about how our stress hormones, by the way, I should also mention this, how stress hormone affects the brain and the body, just trying to communicate with someone who is avoiding you. And again, a lot of people, and I probably should have said this at the beginning of the live chat, that a lot of people believe that, if I just force them to have a conversation with me, everything will go well. Or if I just put this right in front of them, they're going to have to look at it. And that is not the case, because something's happening to you and something's happening to them. What's happening to them is they are engaging their denial system, their minimization system, their avoidance system. And so, cognitively, emotionally, and even physiologically, they are checked out. And so the minute your brain starts to identify that, this is when your brain and your body starts to react. It's very interesting how avoidance works. And I think if we understood avoidance a little bit better, I think we could, prevent some of the issues that we see in our relationships ahead of time. If we're not aware, of how avoidance is impacting our brain, then we can't cope with it effectively. And then we start pushing, or we start forcing, and that only makes things 10 times worse. Have you ever seen a child who may not want to go to bed, and they are avoiding? They're brushing their teeth really slow. They're putting one leg in their pants leg really slow, like they are stalling for time. If you go to that child and try to force them to stop avoiding what they need to do, which is to go to bed, it's not going to work. They're going to push back. They're going to cry. They're going to scream. They're going to stall for time. Adults do the very same thing, but they do it in a way that's unhealthy. Children, okay, we can kind of accept that. We can work with that. But adults, sometimes they won't call you for weeks, right? You might have a family member that's like this. They won't give you eye contact. They gaslight you. So they really kind of disengage and make you look like you are the unstable one. They put up defense mechanisms, and they stonewall. They say, I'm not going to talk to you, right? I'm done with you. We're not going to do this. And then sometimes they will try to create another problem over here, so that you're not pulling in the issue that you need to talk about or you need to address. Sometimes they'll just cause chaos somewhere else, as a very good way to stall for time or to avoid further. And this is very maladaptive. Very maladaptive. Okay, so we've talked about anxiety, we've talked about the brain, we've talked about the neurological pieces of avoidance. Let me go to the chat box, see what you guys are talking about, answer some questions and comments, and then I'm going to tell you what actually happens to you. And there are two forms of avoidance that your family member or the person you're in a relationship with may engage in, which is causing further issues in your relationship. So and let me throw this in here, because I am a trauma therapist. It can cause trauma, and it can reinforce some things in your relationship with them that's not healthy. Okay, let me look at the chat box, see what you guys are talking about, and then we will jump back in. Yes, thank you guys for letting me know. Awesome. Jessica J, I'm so sorry to hear that you're struggling with depression today. I saw that my camera froze again. Hopefully you could hear me. Jessica J, I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. It seems like depression is a common reaction to being in the hospital, to be honest, whether it's medical, psychiatric. It's just, that's kind of like the natural thing that falls in place after you are discharged. So I'm very sorry about that. I'm sorry to hear that. I might post something in the description box for you, Jessica J, that could kind of help you get through some of this. So stay tuned for that. Louis Apaza, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Thank you so much for validating and for confirming, I should say confirming, not validating, confirming that you can hear me and you can see me. It's been cold lately. So sorry, guys. I see my camera froze again. Hopefully you can hear me. Not sure what's going on there. I have absolutely no idea. It's been cold lately. Hello, and glad to see you. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, says I definitely deal with the avoidance. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure a lot of you too have family members who avoid, and they avoid you like the plague. They avoid you with such skill. Let me give you an example of this. I once had a client who did not have the vocabulary of a mature husband. And what he would do is he would avoid the conversations that he and his wife needed to talk about. He would avoid by going to work extra early. He would come home extra late. He would say, I'm hanging out with the guys this weekend. I won't be back until Monday. Or he would book all his business trips and conferences back to back so he didn't have to hear her complain about wanting to move and feeling lonely and feeling like she was a single parent and feeling like, she really just needed him to be there. And instead of him just sitting down and addressing this with her, he decided to avoid. And he did it in a way that almost felt criminal because every opportunity he had to just address the issue, he avoided it. He couldn't do it. And as a matter of fact, our research also suggests too, and I should have mentioned this earlier, that narcissistic individuals who tend to be covert narcissists, who are kind of under the radar. I see that it froze again, so hopefully you can hear me. Those who are kind of under the radar, you can't visibly see that they are narcissistic. These individuals tend to engage in a lot of avoidance behaviors, which is interesting. I'm going to post that information in the description box for you as well so that you can see that. But that's an example. Sometimes in our families and our relationships, we have individuals who are experts in avoiding. This is just who they are, what they do. Thank you for that. It's been cold lately. I appreciate you. That's so sweet. Thank you. All right, just going through comments here. Okay. Louis Apaza, hopefully I said that correctly, said, my mom thinks this dynamic is healthy to live with. We cannot solve past problems because of this. Absolutely. How are we going to solve issues if we avoid all the time? How are we going to talk things through if we avoid all the time? And that's why some pieces of avoidance is defined as maladaptive. It's not healthy because really what you're doing is you're putting on the back burner an issue that needs to be addressed here in the now. And so again, you can't move forward if you're stuck. And that's often the goal of the person who's using avoidance. They want you to stay there so they don't have to deal with the situation. Toxic families and unhealthy relationships often have avoidance at the core, and that's what ends the marriage. That's what ends the relationship. That's what ends the family connection, because the person refuses to be logical and to just talk and to just help you manage these things in your relationship. And I can also post that information in the description box. You may want to check some of that out about divorce and relationships, that avoidance tends to be the foundation of the divorce and of the breaking up and of the family estrangement. You have to talk, you have to engage, you have to connect. Otherwise, the relationship automatically dies. And let me also say, your brain and your body begins to react to that person's avoidance in very negative ways. How long can you tolerate the anxiety, the fight or flight system the fight or flight mode, that you're in? How long can you tolerate that before you say, you know what? I'm tired of my anxiety going up. I'm tired of my heart rate going up. I'm tired of sweating because I'm nervous and I can't stop thinking about this thing. I'm tired of worrying and being anxious, right? And so the number one thing you're likely to do is say, you know what, I'm done. And you walk away, you in the relationship, or you leave your family behind. That's usually how that seems to end up. Let life love you. Hello and welcome. So glad to see you tonight. Says hi, Tamara and everyone. I love when I make it to Tamara's lives. Thank you so much. I love when you do too. Thank you for that. Annie Welker says, my mother has avoided me since I was born. Well, I believe that. She's 80. I'm 61 now. I don't see things ever changing. So odd. I talk to my grown daughter almost every day. It still bothers me. Yeah, absolutely. And my mom is the same way, Annie Walker. She talks to me all the time, every day. And if she can't get me because I'm either in a conference or seeing a client or sleep, she'll text me and blow my phone up. So to imagine that a parent is not there and they avoid you all the time, that's a painful reality. That's more about them and not you. let me also put that in here, and this is for you, Annie Welker, specifically. They're often avoiding because it's them, not you. They can't tolerate what it is that they need to tolerate. They are immature. They are emotionally detached. They are toxic and dysfunctional. They don't have proper coping skills. They don't have relational skills, right? A lot of them tend to be emotionally immature, and psychologically immature as well. So it's more about them than you. That's the sad part. And you're right when you say that I don't know if she'll ever change. And especially at 80, right? It's hard to get younger people to change, much less somebody who's 80 years old. Hi, Mindset. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. You missed all the tech issues at the very beginning. Hopefully, you didn't see that. Welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Yeah, Silent Walk. You're welcome. Yes. I'm going to highlight your other comment because I just got done saying this. It's absolutely childish behavior, no doubt, says Silent Walk. That's absolutely correct. And not to shine a bad light on people who are immature, because a lot of times they can't help that they're immature. They just haven't arrived at a certain developmental level. But let me also say, most individuals who avoid, who are also immature, tend to be emotionally detached as well. And sometimes they lack empathy. And so when they avoid you as opposed to connecting with you, they're really saying, I really don't care about what you have to tell me, what you need to discuss, what it is that's on your heart and mind, because I'm protecting me. I'm protecting me. And so that's why avoidance tends to be a narcissistic thing for the most part, but it is also found in individuals who are emotionally immature and just stagnant. They're stuck. They are stuck. And they can't help that they are stuck most of the time. Jessica J says, avoiding my narc mother-in-law has saved me from more intense anxiety. I don't know if this applies to this subject. I think it does, because again, I think I said this at the very beginning, that I'm coming at you from this avoidance is very maladaptive versus this avoidance is very healthy. So I'm going to get to in a little bit of how avoidance can be healthy, because you can't always connect with people, right? And you may connect with people, and this has happened to me in my personal life. You connect with people who just drain you, right? They're like emotional vampires. They sink their teeth into you and they just drain you of all your energy. And so what do you do with people like that? You have to almost push them back and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm not being disrespectful, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. When I was in college, so many years ago, I was about 20 years old. I remember one of my professors, I totally loved him. He was wonderful. He taught me to just be straight to the point with a fellow classmate who kind of latched on to me because they needed my brain. They didn't latch on to me because they wanted to be a friend or they wanted to be supportive. She just wanted to drive my brain and help her pass some tests. And so my awesome professor said to me, he's like, Tamara, the next time she gets into your face, just cut her off mid sentence and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I gotta go, and leave. And I did that. And boy, did I feel good after that. Because what I learned is she was an emotional vampire. She would latch on and drain you. And so I had to learn, and this may be helpful to you. This is why I'm telling you this. I had to learn how to cut off our communication and cut it off in a healthy way, because otherwise she would just drain the life out of me. So that's a very healthy form of protecting yourself and avoiding. I would avoid her like the plague. I wouldn't go to the cafeteria. I wouldn't hang out on campus. She couldn't see me studying. In between classes, I would drive off the campus and go to the coffee shop and do my studying. Like, I constantly avoided her. And that was a healthy thing for me. I got through college without several migraines and high blood pressure. So Jessica J, I think that's healthy. Sometimes you just have to, right? Okay, looking for one more comment before I go back to the content. Feld Foster Dog Mom, hello and welcome to the chat. That's a very interesting screen name. Welcome. Feld Foster Dog Mom says, I am another early senior who's 80 something years old. Okay, let me go back over this. I am another early senior who's 80 some-year-old mother practice avoidance with motherhood. Yes. So when her new spouse came along, she avoided hearing me about him. Right. I avoided almost all the people, only pets. Right. So her avoidance of you is most likely her saying, I don't want to deal with your opinions, your insight, your anything when it comes to my new spouse, my new partner. That's maladaptive as well, right? How many of you who are watching this live chat know somebody who has been in a relationship with someone and you have friends saying, no, wrong way. Don't go that way with this person. It's not going to last. And that person just says, nope, I don't want to hear what you have to say. And then 3 or 4 months later, maybe even after marriage, they realize I made a terrible mistake. And maybe I should have listened to all the people that told me no, right? So your mom's probably going to have to go through that too. I hate to say that, but that's probably coming down the line. You're welcome, Jessica J. You're welcome. T Mac, I'm going to read your comment before we go back to the content, because I'm going to give you two forms of maladaptive avoidance that your family member or relationship partner may have engaged in. T Mac says, I have a cousin who is in competition with me. Whenever I call him out on it, he disappears for a few months and then he resurfaces with a third party with him who is against me. Yeah, it's called triangulation. I'm sorry you have to go through that. It's called triangulation. He is the victim. You're the one who's pointing the fingers for pulling him out or addressing him about it. And he's decided to avoid and hide and go find somebody who's the rescuer. You guys are probably well aware of this, but I'm going to demonstrate really briefly. I'm surprised my camera hasn't frozen. I probably should not have said that, because now it's bound to freeze, right? So this is called the drama triangle. And if you ever have gone to a couples session in therapy, or you've gone to a couples retreat, this is the very thing that they show you is at play in most relationships. Okay. And I'm going to show you how this goes. And this is you, T Mac. Okay. And this is what happens when somebody avoids. Let me see if I can make this work without shutting down the whole live chat. See that, guys? This is called the drama triangle. And the victim tends to be, I'm going to use T Mac's example. The victim is your cousin, right? The victim is your cousin. The persecutor, here we are right over here. The persecutor is you, T Mac, because you're pointing fingers. You addressed him about the issue. And what he does to kind of protect himself is find somebody who can be the rescuer, right? And that's the other person who's against you. That's the drama triangle. And very, very manipulative people use it. Narcissists use it. Sociopaths who are cold and have no empathy use it. And sometimes couples, when they go to couples therapy, the couples therapist will, kind of recreate the drama triangle and help the couple see that this is the triangle that you're in. And everything that you do is based on this triangle. Well, T Mac, this is what your cousin did. He kind of ran off, he avoided and found somebody that could rescue him and play the savior, right? And what does that do? That allows him to further avoid the issue, because now you're focused on that other person, right? Who are you? Why are you against me? Or you're so distracted by anger, right, at what he did, that it may be really difficult for you to see that he's kind of enacting a ploy to avoid again, right? So T Mac, that's complicated. That's a dynamic that's very maladaptive and unhealthy. Let me say too that, and let's get into this a little bit. Let me say that there's two forms of very manipulative avoidance that may happen within a family context or in a relationship. There's something known as unconflicted adherence. Unconflicted adherence. And here's what that means in a nutshell. It sounds big, but here's what this means. That the person looks at the situation that's before them. Let's say, sorry guys, I saw my camera freeze again. Let's say that individual is a family member, your mom, And you need to talk to her about how you feel that she treats you. She makes you feel like you're not worth anything. She critiques your weight. She says you've gained weight. She critiques your relationship. She critiques, the clothes that you wear. Everything you do, your mom says, why would you do that? Or she minimizes you or gaslights you or refuses to talk to you when she's offended. So let's say that this is your mom. Unconflicted adherence is the process where you sit there, or let's use your mom. Your mom sits there in front of you and kind of calculates in their mind that there's absolutely no risk to me avoiding your accusations that I'm a narcissistic mom. So I'm just going to avoid this because there's no consequence to me avoiding. What's going to happen to me, right? There's nothing I'm going to have to deal with except for your anger, but who cares? Nobody's going to force me to engage in this conversation with you. So I'm just going to avoid it. I'm going to avoid whatever it is that you want to talk to me about because I've already tallied up in my mind that there's no significant risk here. So that's called unconflicted adherence. There's also defensive avoidance. Defensive avoidance. And basically what this is you're the individual is kind of avoiding the situation. I'm trying to put this in a way that's going to be explainable to you. They are avoiding the situation in a way that kind of holds you off from them. I'll put it that way. That's why it's called defensive avoidance, because they are kind of defending themselves by holding you off and ignoring and minimizing anything that you were trying to bring to them. Defensive avoidance. It's their only defense mechanism, right? The walls go up and you can just sit over there with whatever it is that you have to address me about or engage me in, because I'm going to put the walls up really high. You're not going to be able to get in. You're not going to be able to get in. Now, you may go over to that wall and knock on it, try to kick it down, try to get through it. The walls are just going to go up even higher. That's why it's called defensive avoidance. The individual is going to ensure that there is no significant risk to them for avoiding you. That's how they function. That's who they are. And they know how to do it in a way that almost makes you feel like you are chasing them down, right? You should never have to feel like you're chasing somebody in a relationship, a family member, a romantic relationship, a co-working situation, a supervisor. That person should be healthy enough to say, I want to talk to you about this, but can we talk about it at a different time? Or, yeah, let's sit down and talk. What's on your mind, right? Not avoid you. So avoidance is maladaptive in this particular example. Let me also say too that there's a couple of things that narcissists, so these are not the narcissists that you can Google on YouTube and there's a description. I'm talking about the clinical narcissist, the individual who has a pattern of behavior that's really rigid. There's no empathy. There's no ability to self-reflect. They don't have the ability to go within and to process what it is that you're saying to them. They have a specific pattern that they engage in when it comes to avoidance. And before I go through this, let me just say as a disclaimer, even people who are not narcissistic go through this. So you may see yourself in this and you may say, you know what, I do that all the time. And that's fine too. The difference here, though, I want you to keep in mind is narcissists use this the most. They grab those tools that all of us use and they take it to max, right? They take it to 1,000 times worse. And so we may all do these things that I'm getting ready to go through for you, but a narcissist, an individual who is clinically impaired, they have absolutely no empathy, no ability to self-reflect. They utilize these things. Here's what's happening. So the first defense mechanism, which kind of allows for the avoidance, is called evasive avoidance, right? And this means that the individual is avoiding so much that they avoid any reminders that they have avoided something. Let me give you an example of that. So let's say, for example, your father has a very arrogant disposition. You addressed him about it. You said, Dad, you come off as a jerk. You come off so rude. You just don't seem to understand people and you never try to. So that's your conversation with your dad. Let's say your dad, his defense walls go way up, right? He doesn't want to hear what you have to say. He tunes you off. He's going to avoid you. He's going to avoid anything that reminds him of the conversation that you have had with him in the past about him being arrogant. So he's going to avoid that like the plague. Reminders, he may avoid you, he may avoid even movies or commercials that kind of triggers that reminder that you told him that he comes off as a jerk, for lack of a clinical term. That's evasive avoidance. Another form of avoidance that you might see in these individuals or people who utilize avoidance is passing the buck, or as psychology calls it, buck passing. And that's kind of when you shift the responsibility onto someone else. That's your way of avoiding, right? They shift responsibility onto somebody else. Oh, no, 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 I'm not going to deal with that. That's not going to be my issue. Here you go. And they shift it off to somebody else. So buck passing or passing the buck. Another thing, there's another thing that they do as well. Research highlights this, and it's called bolstering. And bolstering is kind of avoiding the immediate situation, and really making it an inferior, minimized issue. So in other words, it may be huge to you, but in order to avoid you, they minimize it and they make it really small. Right? They make it really small in their mind and in your mind. And they may even gaslight you. They may even say, you know what, that's not a big deal, and go on to something else. They minimize it. It's inferior to them. It's less than them. They don't care about it. So that's considered bolstering. And let me throw in here, when you're dealing with these kind of individuals, before I go to the chat box, when you're dealing with these kinds of individuals, you may do what's called conservation of energy. Conservation of energy. And that's when you say, you know what? I'm going to avoid this very, very toxic person because I don't want to lose my energy to this. Once I lose my energy trying to chase this person, I'm not going to be able to engage in this conversation, or I'm not going to be able to be healthy in this relationship, or I'm not going to be able to process anything because I've drained myself just coming after you and trying to engage you. And so that's called conservation of energy. You're just kind of biding your time. Oh, geez. Can you guys, let me see if I can, let me see if I can figure out why we are frozen again. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me at least? Jeez, I have no idea what's going on. Hmm. Okay, give me a second, guys. Let me see what's going on here. All right, you guys should be able to hear me and see me now. I have no clue. Here's what I'm thinking, guys, that my camera overheats because I've had it all day doing conferences and so forth, Zoom. So I apologize for that. Okay, let's take a little bit of a break and let me go to the chat box and see what you guys are saying. And then we will go from there. I want to give you the types of avoidance that maybe you have engaged in, and I want to know what you guys think. Do you think it's unhealthy avoidance, or is it healthy? So we'll get to that in just a second. But I do want to acknowledge Liberty Can. Hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Glad to see you. Let me put you up here. Oh, here we go. Liberty Can says, my brother started to cut me off, but realized it was he who was gaslighting me. And they were toxic. Yeah. Sometimes family members, um, Sometimes family members can take us, they were toxic family dynamics. I'm sorry about that, Liberty Can. Let me reread that. My brother started to cut me off, but realized it was he that was gaslighting me, and there were toxic family dynamics. Absolutely. Sometimes family members are able to kind of pump the brakes and say, you know what, how am I contributing to this? Right. And that's a really good sign. That's a really good sign. Silent Walk says, "Yep, if you've given the energy, they will still it." Absolutely. And so you may engage, let me say it again, you may engage in conservation of energy. Conservation of energy. And that's a concept of avoidance. A concept of avoidance. Mindset says these people with all these personality disorders are nothing but energy vampires. That's always in the way. Yeah, I mean, you could see it that way. Sometimes I think sometimes I think uh psychology kind of over pathologizes everything. So there's this over path, how am I going to say this? There's kind of like this over labeling. I'll put it that way. That's a little more specific. It's this over labeling of individuals. And so that's a narcissist, and that's a covert narcissist, and that's a psychopath, and that's a sociopath, and that's, and psychology just goes on and on and on. And labels are just all over the place, right? So sometimes we kind of over diagnose, sometimes we over label, and somebody said this to me yesterday when I attended a conference. They were like, they said to me, they were like, Miss Cameron, do you think that sometimes these are just people with bad behavior, right? Do they have to be a narcissist? Do they have to be a sociopath? And I says, you're right, they don't have to be. you know so I want to throw that in here, mindset, that sometimes it's a person behaving badly. It's not always a personality disorder, but you are right. They are emotional vampires, and so are people behaving badly. um Dang, Dion, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, I'm 25. I'm learning to not care about my family no more than they care for me. Oh, I understand that. It's a process, right? So there's probably still unresolved anger there. There's probably some resentment there. There's probably some hurt feelings that are there. And so you've got to work through that over time, and you'll learn over time where you want to be with your family, and the responses that you need to have to them. That's a hard place to be in. Yanni Body TV, hello and welcome. I hope I said that correctly. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you today. Okay, I'm just looking for comments. Interesting. So Annie Welker says there's a great book on that triangle for the name of it. Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you for that. I love when you guys share books. Let me do a quick Google search. Is that the name of the book, Annie Walker? Oh my God. Google is my best friend when I'm at a loss. So wait a minute. Is that a book? I think. Is it? I don't know. What's the name of the book? Okay, Annie Walker, you got to give us the name or a link or something. I'm going to hold you to that because I don't see it. Thank you for mentioning that, though. That's wonderful. Liberty Can says, how's your house projects coming along, Tamara? Oh God, I could go on for days and weeks and hours. I think we're doing okay. I planted 4 trees last weekend. Yes, trees, arborvitae trees. Other than that, I love it. It's going great. It's going great. But then I look around and I'm like, okay, I can see that neighbor over there. That needs another tree, and then I'm ready to go by and put in another tree. Oh God, I'm private. That's what you're getting from me. I'm a very private person. Thank you for asking, Liberty Can. That's so nice of you. Shalin? I'm going to say Shalin Monk, hello and welcome. I apologize if that wasn't correct. Says, Tamara, I want you to check out this girl. She specializes on narcissist behavior, Michelle Lee Neves or Knives. Absolutely. Thank you for that. I certainly will. Today, I was blessed by Dr. Ramani from the conference that I've been attending, and she gave a very, very good outline and training to other professionals and teachers and people there who are trying to understand narcissism. She gave a very, very well designed and strategic presentation on narcissistic personalities and just people who have very unhealthy behavior. So it's awesome to be able to see that there's another person here who specializes in talking about these kind of things. So thank you for that. Dr. Ramani is great. I loved her presentation today. It was wonderful. Live Life says, my mother is emotionally avoidant with me unless I'm expressing joy. She even called me her happy child, like it was an identity, but she won't take accountability for any of the abuse she dished out. Absolutely. Because it's another form of avoidance, which you're well aware of. It's like saying, you're my happy child. So if I see you as my happy child, then I don't have to go back in time to figure out or process what it is that I've done to you. Because what I've done to you doesn't exist if you're my happy child, because the two are very contradictory, you know? So it's truly a psychological manipulation that she's doing there, right? If you're her happy child, then she doesn't have to look at anything that she's done wrong because you're happy, right? Because you're happy. Okay, let me keep going here. Sane, hello and welcome. It's good to see you too. Thank you for coming tonight. Glad to see you. I love when you guys engage and sign on. You guys are wonderful. Sade, hello and welcome. Glad to see you tonight. Says, oh my God, I just logged in. I'm so excited. I caught a live. I'm glad you caught a live. She says, I'm sorry for the rambling, but you are my light to my darkness. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for that. You're amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. I've been in a cycle for years, and at the age of 37, I'm thankful. Yeah, absolutely. Once you're in that cycle for years with those unhealthy dynamics, right? It kind of grinds down your mind and your heart and your spirit, right? And it makes it really hard to engage in your own life. As minds, I think it was what is this? Mindset? Is that the right screen name? Yes, Mindset and I were saying earlier, they're like emotional vampires. You know, they drain the life out of you. And so when you're in a cycle though, and you continue to remain in that cycle because either you can't get away or you don't know what to do, or they're just that powerful to keep you in that cycle, it grinds down your motivation for life. It really does. It really does. Hello, Phoenix. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, I keep getting upset with myself because I keep reacting and not able to not show it. I really need to get out of here, but I have such PTSD, trust issues, and always too exhausted mentally and physically. Yeah, absolutely. So let me break this down before we go back into the content. I would not get into I would not get into a position. I would try very, very, is my camera blurred, guys? Hold on. There, is that it? Perfect. Okay. I would be careful with blaming yourself, right? Because it sounds like self-blame to say, I keep getting upset with myself because I keep reacting. It's okay to react. You might desire the ability to stay in your lane or to stay calm and focused and balanced instead of getting upset. And that comes with time. You know, it's a growth process. And sometimes people have to go to therapy for that, right? And when you're in the crutches of extreme emotions or intense emotions, it's really hard as a human a phoenix, excuse me, to say, I need to stop getting upset. because that's really, really hard. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of psychological work. So do not blame yourself on that one. And I think as you move along, you will see, if you continue watching YouTube clips, reading books, maybe going to therapy, talking with healthy people, really working on yourself, I think you will be able to see that it's easy to move past these kind of people once you grasp what it is that you have to do, right? That's where a really good therapist comes in, because they need to unfold for you, the therapist, that you have the ability to move forward, and here's how you can do it, you know? Okay, let me go back to the content. I see Peggy Dietz. I want to read your comment. Silent Walk, I want to read your comment. Let's go back to the content though. Let me give you some examples of the types of avoidance that you may engage in, or somebody that is close to you may engage in. There's a form of avoidance known as situational avoidance. Now, situational avoidance is when you avoid a person, place, or thing. You avoid a person, place, or thing. You say, you know what? I don't want to see my grandmother. I'm not going over there because she's just going to pep talk me. You know what? I'm going to avoid that time of day because I'm going to run into my husband and he's going to want to talk to me. I'm going to avoid that dealership over there, that thing over there, because it reminds me of something. And so that's what's called situational avoidance. You might notice in really toxic family dynamics, which is where my specialization is, it's really in the trenches of dysfunctional families and how they operate. You will notice situational avoidance. Family members who are in a toxic dynamic within one household can avoid one specific situation that should have been dealt with 15 years ago, but they keep avoiding it because they don't want to have to deal with what comes with acknowledgement. And what comes with acknowledgement is a lot, right, guys? Responsibility, accountability, looking at some painful things, being able to say, you know what, that was wrong of me, being able to look at somebody and say, you've hurt me, you really have. How could you do that, right? Asking intense questions. A way to avoid that is just to avoid the situation in and of itself, right? So situational avoidance. The other thing is cognitive avoidance, and that's suppression. I'm going to avoid by pushing this down. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Nope, nope, nope. It doesn't exist, right? It can also be escaping. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. Or I'm going to put my earphones on and blast my music. There's a healthy form to this, by the way, because you may need to cognitively avoid some things in your life that's not okay. And that's fine. Put your earphones on and just zone out, right? I noticed for myself that if I just need to avoid my professional life, my professional title, and I just need to be a human being, I will literally get on the road, drive to a whole other state and play my music or play a podcast. And that is my moment. And that is my cognitive avoidance. It keeps me sane. Yesterday, when I was driving home from Washington, D.C., that's exactly what I did. I hopped in the car. It was for my conference. So I stayed in a hotel and then I left the hotel, hopped in my car, drove 3 hours to get back home, almost 3.5 hours to get back home, and turned up my music. And then when I got bored with that, I went to a podcast. And that was my space to just be me, right? And to just not have to deal with anything that stresses me out. And so there's a healthy component to cognitive avoidance. That's what it's called, cognitive avoidance. But the maladaptive piece of cognitive avoidance is I'm going to suppress, I'm going to escape, I am going to worry and continue to worry because I don't really want to focus on what the problem is. And I'm going to distract myself because I don't want to process. The other form of avoidance, and I thought this was pretty interesting, is known as somatic avoidance. Somatic avoidance. And this is when you avoid something so intensely that your heart rate goes up, you have that fight or flight system that kicks on, your amygdala starts feeling like there's threats in the environment because now you are being thrown into a state of disequilibrium. Your world feels really uneasy, and it feels uneasy because you are avoiding something that you really need to deal with. And I think a lot of us have gone through that. There's also what's known as protective avoidance. And really what that means is you put up as many barriers in your environment or in your mind to make yourself feel safe. Protective avoidance. You may engage in this if you have a narcissistic parent. You don't want to go visit your mom on her birthday because she's going to critique the weight you've gained. She's going to say that she doesn't like your husband. She's going to say that your kids have gained way too much weight, right? She's going to say that, she's not really proud of you in so many words, that you made a mess out of your life. She's going to say something that's going to push a button. So your protective avoidance may be, kind of putting up this barrier. So I'm going to look at rituals, or I'm going to do what I've set out to do. I'm going to do things my way, kind of being ritualistic and very, very structured and rigid is what we call protective avoidance. And it's healthy. For the most part, it's healthy. You're saying, I don't want to deal with this toxic narcissism or this dysfunctional family dynamic. So I'm going to push you back there while I go do the things that makes me feel stable, structured, and healthy. So that's protective avoidance. There's also avoidant coping, and this is unhealthy. Avoidant coping, it's denying, it's minimizing, it's not taking responsibility, it's not being accountable. You may see that in a very toxic family dynamic. I'm just going to cope with the situation by avoiding. That's the only way I know how to deal with this. There's also what's called decision avoidance. This is also maladaptive. Decision avoidance. What happens here is I delay making a decision because I don't know what else to do. I'm going to delay making a decision. I once had a client, I'll give you an example of this. I once had a client whose father was an attorney. He wanted to give his daughter the opportunity to sign a prenup before she got married. She refused to do it, and she engaged in decisional avoidance. She delayed, 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 and delayed as long as she could until she had to make that decision. And then she was faced with having to tell her father, yes, I will, or no, I won't. So her maladaptive behavior was, I'm going to delay signing, even talking about a prenup for the next 4 years of our engagement. And then when we get to the day before the wedding, which is how this happened, the day before the wedding, then my client said, you know what, I don't think I'm going to go through with it. And she stalled for four whole years, just because she could not deal with the reality that she had to make a decision. The issue there was she had a really hard time telling her father, who was a very strict and popular lawyer. She had a really hard time telling him no. So she engaged in what's called decision avoidance. Decision avoidance. Okay, let me go back to the chat box, see what you guys are saying, answer some questions, and we're going to wrap up. I feel so bad for the tech issues. I apologize, guys. I have no clue what's going on. Peggy Deet says, The Days of Deception, thank you so much. She got that one, is the title of a book from Jack Hibbs. I was trying to remember that, and I didn't say it earlier because I couldn't think of the title. So thank you so much, Peggy Deets. She says that he was invited to pray recently in Congress, a pastor from Southern California, and on the front lines for USA and the world. Yeah, The Days of Deception. Thank you for that. I could not think of that title. Thank you. Yep, agree. Very much agree. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry, Louise. I think Louise Apaza. I'm sorry. Hopefully, everything is working on your end now and my end. Hopefully, you can see me moving. We're not frozen. Sun and Sunflower says invasive avoidance. Yeah, well, let me correct that. She says, thank you for time hearing the term. Yes, evasive. So, evasive avoidance is basically you're avoiding the reminders that you're avoiding the reminders of what happened in a situation that you want to avoid. That's the way I'm trying to put that. So it's evasive. Evasive. Okay, still looking for comments. Yes, absolutely. That's how you do it, Phoenix. I agree. Yes. And sometimes you do need to fight back with eating clean, right? Not drinking alcohol, not smoking or vaping, eating clean, working out, jogging. That's the number one thing that I do when I am at the max stressed. Okay. I will put on my jogging shoes, grab my water bottle and go jogging, or I will go to the gym, which I do almost every day, because and this is kind of like cognitive coping or cognitive avoidance. You need to be able to hang on to something that's going to keep you grounded and sane, right? So we can call that cognitive coping, or we can call it cognitive avoidance. Yeah, that's really, really good, Phoenix. Yeah, good for you. Peggy Dietz says, watch the true movie Kathini, and you will be so empowered as a woman. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you, Peggy Dietz. Yes. Jessica J, let me know if we're still frozen. I hope not. Okay, wonderful. Okay, I'm coming through. Yes, I know there was a black screen. I'm so sick of technology this week. Exactly. Thank you, the Retro Woman 80. I think I did need another reboot. Thank you, Deb. Yes, I need your sympathy and your validation. Thank you. Yes, it's been a week. Let me just tell you. Yes, yes, wonderful. Okay, let me skip through some of these validating comments. Thank you so much. I'm not the only one seeing tech issues. Failed foster dog mom says, I don't know all the types of avoidance, but I am sure I practice all of them. Sometimes it works, mostly it doesn't, but I feel safe. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very humble comment. Sometimes these avoidance tactics do work, and sometimes you have to use them, right? Sometimes you have to use situational avoidance. I'm not going to deal with this situation right now because it's not healthy for me to deal with this right now. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to avoid this, right? Sometimes you have to use cognitive avoidance. I'm not going to think about this right now because it's not healthy. You may even have to use what's called somatic avoidance. We just talked about it a little bit, because now your fight or flight system has gotten involved, and your energy and your heart rate and your blood pressure is going up. So what do? You avoid the thing that's causing the stress response. You sometimes also have to be protective over your space, right? So you're right, failed foster dog mom. It is healthy sometimes to utilize these things. Absolutely. Okay. Um, looking for more comments here. Interesting. So Deb says labels only help if it makes it easier to deal with a person. Yeah. Like if there are better tools to working with BPD. Yeah, absolutely. So she's referring to when I said that we throw around a bunch of labels in this field of psychology, and we tag people narcissist, borderline, avoidant, things like that. And let me get into avoidant personality in just a second here, because a lot of you have questions for me on that. But we have so many labels in the field that it almost starts to feel like alphabet soup. Like sometimes when a new term comes out, I'm like, do we have to do this again? What is this? What does this mean? An example of that would be the new label, such as prolonged grief disorder. Now, I've only diagnosed it once because I have a situation with a client who's pretty in depth and she meets every bit of the criteria. But do we really need a label? Do we really need a label for grief? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So my field just throws around labels. So Deb is saying labels only matter if it makes it easier to deal with a person. And I agree. The only reason we have labels is for insurance companies and to identify you, because we have to be able to identify a set criteria so we can properly treat you. And that's how we do it, right? You go to a medical doctor about a sore throat. He's going to ask you, is it scratchy? Is it red? Are you coughing? Is there, some kind of discharge that's coming from your throat, right? For TMI, I'm so sorry about that. But whatever, the doctor has to ask you a series of questions. Same thing in psychology, right? We have to have a set criteria to diagnose you. But we overlabel. We overlabel. We really do. Liberty Can says, I don't label anymore. I just figure if they are nasty and play games, they are just that. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so too. I would also say too, though, and let me throw this in here briefly, that it might be helpful to label when the person is at an extreme level of behaving, right? So we may not label our very nebby neighbor a sociopath because we don't know, but we may label a very cold, callous, mean, calculating, strategic, manipulative father, we may have to label him a psychopath because it helps me identify what category he is in, right? Okay, that's amazing, Silent Walk. That's awesome. Goes to show you how long I've been in the field, right? Yeah, thank you for that, Annie Walker. I will Google that. I will do my favorite thing, which is go to Google. Daryl Harris, hello and welcome. Thank you for such sweet comments this week. I appreciate you. Says good avoidance is definitely needed. Yeah, sometimes it is. Yeah, thank you so much, Annie Walker. I appreciate that. Let me get your comment. What happened? Okay, let's go back. Oh, this is hilarious. Jesus loves us says, LOL, Tamara. Another tree. Yes, I have like 5 or 6 of them in my yard. I really do. Maybe I'll take you guys on a stroll through my garden one day. Okay, Phoenix. Phoenix says, I'd love to plant a tree. I love nature and I'm super private. That's why I'm always so surprised how I just let it rip on your channel. I know, right? Because you're talking to a therapist. That's what it is, Phoenix. That's what it is. It's hard to stay quiet around a therapist. So when I was in Maryland this week, driving through to Washington D.C., I stopped at Whole Foods, and a lady was talking to. This is a side note, just to give you a mental break. A lady stopped me in an aisle. Right, I'm literally looking at the honeydew, and I'm like, should I get this? Should I not? Literally trying to have a moment. And trying to say in my psyche, I'm no longer a therapist in this Whole Foods. I am now a human being looking for honeydew and pineapples. This lady comes over to me and she's like, do you need help reaching that? I'm like, no, I'm okay, thank you, I'm just trying to make a decision. And she starts telling me about her divorce, telling me about her children, telling me about the pet that just died. And she's like, I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, I'm so private. And so, I pull my tag, out of my purse there, and I'm like, maybe this is why. And she's like, oh my God, I've been talking to a therapist all this time. So, Phoenix, it happens, right? Maybe somewhere your subconscious or your brain says, I need a therapist. And so you're on here telling me things, just like the lady at Whole Foods. Okay. Phoenix also says Dr. Ramani is my other favorite, isn't she? Love her. I so enjoyed her presentation today. Mindset says working with relationship triangles. Yeah, maybe that's it. That's a good book too. Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Phoenix. That's so sweet of you. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for that. Thank you. I think authenticity is what makes a good therapist, right? Because if we're not authentic, we're wasting your time. We're wasting your time. Okay. Nancy Bartley, hello and welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's live chat. Says, my family never talked. I did address something my therapist thought I should and was told I was playing the blame game, which wasn't allowed. Yeah, I'm just processing. So the therapist told you that you were playing the blame game? Yeah. Okay. I don't know what to say about that one. It sounds like the therapist may have misunderstood. I have no idea. I'm sorry that happened to you. Sometimes therapists will say things, and I hope I'm understanding your comment correctly and not misreading it. But sometimes therapists will say things, and I'm like, right? And it's because we're human. We're human. We have all these things called degrees, and we have all this experience. Some don't, but most do. And we say things, and it may have not been said correctly. So I'm sorry that happened to you. Let me also say sometimes you have to say things and address the very things your people I won't say your therapist, but people on the outside think you should not address. Sometimes you have to address it, right? You know your family better than any therapist or anybody. Okay. Before I go to the comments, let me jump into avoidant personality because I know some of you are dying to hear this. Okay. So avoidant personality disorder. It is a disorder in the cluster that has a lot to do with anxiety. And, a couple chats ago, we talked about cluster B. So borderline, narcissism, antisocial personality, histrionic. That's cluster B. Cluster C is the anxious, on the edge, I'm afraid, fearful, avoidant category. It's the cluster where avoidant personality is. And what's interesting about this diagnosis is it has really nothing to do with this topic because the individual wants to be in contact with people. They want to have a relationship, but all they know to do is avoid because they are fearful, they are anxious, they are unaware of kind of the holes that they can get themselves in relationships, and so they're afraid, they're anxious. And the reason that this topic has been elevated to avoidant personality disorder clinically is because the individual does everything I talked about in this live chat 100 times more. So they avoid, they go through a central nervous system upset, or they go into fight or flight mode. They avoid in a maladaptive way. Sometimes they avoid not only situations, but they avoid people. It's this really intense fear and anxiety at the core of who they are. They want to be connected, but they just avoid because that's the only thing that they know to do. These individuals are kind of locked in a box. They're locked in a box. They're stuck. They want out. They're kicking and hitting and screaming and punching at the box, but they don't know how to engage because they're so fearful and anxious at the core of who they are. So that's avoidant personality disorder. It's not a common diagnosis. It's rather rare, and there seems to be more women than men who are diagnosed with avoidant personality disorder, according to research. Is it able to be treated effectively because it's a personality disorder? It is. You just have to have, the right therapist and the right treatment tools and the right approach. And the number one approach for somebody with avoidant personality disorder, I should add, tends to be kind of not confrontation. I'm missing the word. Exposure. That's the word I'm looking for. Exposure. Exposing yourself a little bit over time to those things that you're avoiding. That tends to be the treatment of choice for avoidant personality disorder. Sade says, yes, it definitely does. And even harder being a single mother. So I chose to detach, but the hold is strong. I can't lie. Every day is a struggle, but I walk in faith. Yeah, I'm sure every day is a struggle. That's really difficult. For those of you who want to know what Sade is talking about, go ahead and do the replay of this, and you can scroll back to her comment. I don't want to waste time going back over the previous comment. Raymond Vincent Garcia Jr., hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says, hello, everyone. I can relate to this topic because I have done a lot of avoidance before. Yes. And Raymond, you weren't here earlier when I said that there's a healthy avoidance and then there's an unhealthy avoidance. There's a very adaptive part of avoidance, right? You can kind of build avoidance into your life in healthy ways, but then there's also a very unhealthy or maladaptive form of avoidance where you minimize, stonewall, gaslight, refuse to talk, the list goes on. Shalin, I'm going to call it that. I'm so sorry if it's wrong. Shalin Monk says, live your best life, look at it, when you look in the mirror, tell yourself how beautiful you are. Give yourself the best affirmations you can think of. Even if you don't feel like your best, be your best. I like that a lot. Basically, what you're saying is let's take a cognitive approach. I'm going to therapize this. Let's take a cognitive approach to those negative thought patterns that keeps you stuck. So let's restructure this. And there is some research that backs that theory 100%. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I know there was more to your comment. I'm going to keep it moving though. Thank you for that. Moon Warrior Turtle. Wow, that's such an interesting screen name. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Says, I used to explain my sister and mom's treatment towards me as they hated me since 13. Then I dated a man that led me to learning about gaslighting. Excuse me. I misspoke there. So she says, I then dated a man that led me to learning about gaslighting. That's how I learned what my family was doing to me. Yeah. Yeah. You're the one with the problem, not me. You're the one who's talking too much, not me. Why do you always blame me? Right? They turn things around, flip it on you, make it your issue. That's how they function. Gaslighting tends to be associated on social media with narcissism, that a narcissistic individual will gaslight because they don't have the capacity to take responsibility. So they avoid by using gaslighting. Lou S, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Glad you signed on. Thank you so much, Shalin. Shalin, I'm probably saying that wrong. Monk, thank you so much. That's wonderful to see. Thank you. Silent Walk says it makes it easier to deal with when you know that you are not part of the problem. Yeah, that's so true. You can concentrate on dealing with them and the problem itself. Very, very much agree. What happens with a person who engages in maladaptive avoidance is they do try to pass the buck. So they will do what I said earlier, buck passing. That's actually a term that's used in research to refer to people who use this form of avoidance. They pass the buck. Nope, it's your issue, but like Silent Walk is saying here, once you recognize, wait a minute, I'm not the issue here, then you can say, no, you can have your stuff back because it is not me. I'm gonna make you own that because this is not my issue. This has nothing to do with me. You kind of have to get into the mindset of conservation of energy. I'm going to conserve my energy, and the way that I do that is by putting all of this back on you. It's not fair that you have to carry the burden. So I like that a lot, Silent Walk. Thank you for that. Very much agree. Hello, NW. Probably, but I've been out in Washington, D.C. all week, and everybody was pulling me this way and that way and this way and that way. So I'm going to be going through my emails. I will get to you as soon as I can, I promise. Raymond Vincent Garcia says, I did that a lot during middle and high school years, putting my headphones on full blast with my music. I blew out a lot of headphone speakers in my day. Yeah, that's hilarious because I used to do that as an adolescent as well, just because I needed to zone out. And that's a healthy form of avoidance, playing music, going jogging, doing whatever you need to do to cope better, right? What's unhealthy is something that I saw 5 years ago in my office, which was a mom who brought her child to psychotherapy and and she didn't want to hear the child. So what did she do? She had one earphone or one earbud in one ear and the other ear was open so that she could partially be a part of the family session. And I had to kindly ask her at the time, do you mind removing all of your earbuds because your child needs to know that you are fully present and you're listening. But it was her avoidance. It was her maladaptive avoidance. And she figured, I'll leave this ear open and I'll plug this one up. That way I can only hear some of this. Very selfish to do, but that was her maladaptive coping skill at the time. Okay, looking for comments. Sure. Comment up so everybody can see that. Yes, I'm so glad you enjoyed being here. I welcome you back and I hope you have a nice night as well. I'm going to wrap up here in just a second. Let Life Love You says, my sister that I no longer want a relationship with is coming to visit my mother in August, but I do not want to see her. But she's hoping to see me when she visits with her new fifth husband. Oh my Lord. Help. Okay, so that was a Freudian slip. I probably shouldn't have said that. Having a fifth husband, though, that's a lot. Okay, that speaks to something in and of itself. But I don't know. Maybe you should put that in the comment section for me. I'm gonna have to ponder that one. I don't even know where to begin. If I don't know where to begin, I know you have to be, just kind of like, what do I do? What do I do? So yeah, maybe in the comment section, if you can add that to the comment section, I'll answer that. I need to ponder that one for a little bit though. You got it, sun and sunflowers. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Live Life. I am Really humbled by that. Thank you. That's so sweet. Okay, let me keep going. Let me keep looking because we really need to sign off. I've been on here way too long. Mommy Vlog says, was the what was that movie called? You may have to scroll back and look. Yeah, I think. Yes, hello. I see you. Welcome, welcome. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you so much for that. Much love to you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica. Much love to you. I hope you're feeling better. I hope you get some rest so that you can recover. One thing my mom said to me, and I try to hold this dear, I really, really do. She says to me, rest is restorative. You have to get it. And she's like, sleep is restorative. She's probably taking a nap now. My mom's like, you have to rest. So, Jessica J, you have to rest. I hope you rest. Yes, thank you, Liberty Can. Love when you guys give resources. Thank you for confirming that. Princess, welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Glad to see you. It's okay. I'm going to sign off here in just a little bit. I'm trying anyway. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I might do that. I might do that. I do have my trip to Washington filmed, and I'm really pondering if I want to let you guys see it. Not only was I able to be on the property of the White House, but I was also able to get some really cool inner city things on camera. And so I'm like, this is probably not good to film, but I feel compelled to film this. This is so interesting. So I might, we'll see. We'll see. I'm sleeping on it. So you may see a surprise video on my trip to Washington. Dushi, John or Jean, I don't know if I said that correctly. I apologize. Welcome, glad to see you. Thank you so much. I've got to get back to doing more YouTube videos and implementing that with my live chats because some of you love the videos. So know that I'm trying to figure out how to implement both. Yeah. Poppy444, hello and welcome. I can't remember if I welcomed you, says those type of family members are manipulative. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yeah. You guys are so kind. Thank you for all these kind comments. I love them. Liberty Can says, my dad took us to his attorney and said to me, your brother gets everything and you get nothing. Why would you do that in front of a room of people? Well, okay, so you can look at this as it's easier for him to do it in front of a room of people because they are his protection, right? You guys are probably not going to get into this, this fight in front of all those people. That's one way to look at that. Another way to look at that might be, he's kind of shifting the attention, shifting the focus in the room. You might be so embarrassed by everybody being there that, he can kind of say these things to you and get away with it. There's many different things we can say about that, but I think that is horrible. It is horrible. It tells you a lot about his character. Okay. Thank you so much, Deb. So sweet. Thank you. Yes, I love communicating with you guys. I really do. You're wonderful. Thank you, Deb. That's so sweet of you. Silent Walk says, that was my wife. Avoidance disorder. Yeah, avoidant personality disorder. Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine somebody with an avoidant personality disorder and how they behave? It's constant avoidance. A personality disorder is a pervasive, chronic set of behaviors that's hard to unwire. It's hard to unwire. And so when you have a person with an avoidant personality, you're talking about maybe a lifetime of avoidance, right? And so anytime my clients come to me and they want to talk to me about avoidance and I'm getting ready to marry this woman or I'm getting ready to marry this man and they have avoidant tendencies, the first thing I ask them is, are you willing and ready to deal with a lifetime, potentially a lifetime of avoidance? Because if this person has a character pathology, they have a personality disorder that is avoidant, you're going to deal with this in every situation you're going to encounter. Picking a school for the kids, making a decision about marriage, going to somewhere to eat dinner, decorating the house, putting security in the home, jobs, location where you want to live. Everything is going to be a battle with a person that has avoidant personality disorder. Tanya Turner, did I ignore you this whole chat? I apologize for that, and I'm so very sorry. Welcome. Glad to have you. I did see you a few times. Okay, I'm going to read a few more comments and then we're going to sign off. Mommy Vlog said, I just went through that with an old friend of mine. She was taking my inventory, pointing fingers at me. And I realized that was her stuff, not mine. Yeah. Yeah, we therapists go through that. Sometimes as a therapist, we kind of have to sit and take being yelled at, cursed out, abused, neglected, and mistreated. And then at the end of that session, still be able to say, I'll see you next session. Right. And so that takes a lot of stamina and professionalism and training and understanding that what you just passed on to me, passing the buck, what you just passed on to me is not my issue. It is your stuff. And I'm going to disengage so that you can then see that I have given you no reaction to that. I'm going to show you kindness and love and support as we move along. So you can use that approach too, as well if you need to. But it sounds like she's an old friend, so you probably don't need to, but you'll have that for future relationships. If you see somebody kind of passing the buck and avoiding something or just getting their anger out, the best approach is disengage. Not ignore, because that can stir an issue, but disengage. Don't even engage in the battle. Okay. I don't even know how to begin to pronounce this, so I'm going to spell it. MJ Spy T777, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says, my mom loves doing this. Every time I call her, she's watching TV and refuses to turn it off while I'm talking to her. Yeah, it's avoidance. It's avoidance. Your question should be, why are you avoiding me? Are you avoiding me because you feel like you deserve TV time? Are you overwhelmed? Are you avoiding me because you're selfish and narcissistic and you don't care about what I'm saying to you? Or are you avoiding because this is who you are at the core of who you are? So finding out the reason why is the difficult part, but it's important. All right. Thank you so much, the Retro Woman 80. I'm so glad this was helpful. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. I have to throw some humor in here, guys. You know, Keisha Monique, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Yes. Thank you so much, Moon Warrior Turtle. Let me show you guys something. You ready for this? So this is a fantastic book by Lindsay Gibson, and I'm going to give you a back seat of what happened at the Psychotherapy Networker Conference. I recommend her book. She also has a new book that has a lot to do with mindfulness. So you want to get this book. I don't know if you can see this, and I don't know if she'll ever see my live chat. Is this going to work? Is this going to work? Here she is. So this is the author of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. That's Lindsay Gibson right there. She's wonderful. Go and check out her new book. Let me pull it up for you so that you can go and get the new book. Give me 1 second. You're going to want to get this book because really what it's doing is helping you. I think this is it. It's helping you manage. So this is not, I don't think this is her most recent book, but she has one. You may want to check this one out. Let me see if it'll focus for me. Are you going to focus? Are you going to focus? Just a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to read it. Okay. It's self-care for adult children of emotionally immature parents, self-care. So she's going to teach you how to get the self-care that you need to kind of revitalize yourself. I read the book and I thought, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. I've got to share this with my clients. So there you go. There you go. She's awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. And you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for being with me in this live chat. I am going to do a live chat next Friday. Granted, I have the time. And I also have a video for you that is simply titled Control. So we're going to talk about controlling family members and people in relationships and how that can lead to complex PTSD. So stay tuned for that. Thank you once again for being with me in this technologically difficult live chat. So love you guys a lot. I will see you in the next live chat. Bye-bye.